This is an AI website builder built with Pydantic AI and CopilotKit. And this is what we'll be building from scratch in this video. I'm going to ask it to build a website for an airline company based in London. So I'm going to refresh the page and paste the prompt. The workflow will call the planner agent and return a list of pages an airline company should have, and then I get to decide what page I want to generate. All right, there you go. So let's say I want the home page and flight status tracker page. So let me unselect these ones. And then I can just click on confirm. So now the workflow will call the generator agent to generate the pages. There you go. So what you just saw, it's a multi-agent workflow in action. A planner agent broke down the request. A human-in-the-loop checkpoint gave me control over what gets built, and the generator agent executed the design. This is what we'll be building in this video, so let's get into it. In Pydantic AI, we have these multi-agent patterns. We've already seen single-agent workflow in the previous video. In this video, we'll be using agent delegation for building our application. Agent delegation refers to the scenario where an agent delegates work to another agent, then takes back control when the delegate agent finishes. So this is what is also referred to as the orchestrator pattern or orchestration on other AI platforms. But here in Pydantic, we call it agent delegation. So let's get into building our application. Let's start with the front-end project and create a Next.js project. So to create a Next.js project, I'll go to the Next.js documentation page. So here on the documentation page for Next.js, you can see I'll be using pnpn. So I can just copy this to create a new Next.js project. So I'll paste it in here, my terminal, and I'll call the project Frontend. So that's what I'm going to call the project. I'll click on enter. And so it's complaining about the node version here. So I have nvm installed on my machine. So I'm just going to use it, nvm use 20. So great. So next we create the backend project. So I'll use uv init backend. And there you go, created a backend project for us. Let's go into the front-end project and install the packages that we'll be using. All right, so I'll need to install CopilotKit. I will need to install Xyflow, and I will need to install shadcn. So shadcn is the component library for Tailwind that I will be using. So let me show you how to install CopilotKit. So here on CopilotKit's documentation, I have this portion here that says install CopilotKit packages. So I'm just going to copy this, pnpm add CopilotKit and all the packages that it needs. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it in here. So next, I will install Xyflow. So Xyflow, this is the library that I will use for the right side of the application, the canvas area. Here, let's copy Xyflow react pnpm add this. So the next package I'll install will be shadcn. So I'll go in here and copy this command and paste it. Great. So I have all the packages that I need on the front end. So let's go to the back end and do the same thing. All right. So on the back end, I'm going to install Pydantic AI, uv add Pydantic AI. I'm going to add python-dotenv for environment variables. And then I'm going to add FastAPI. And then I'm going to add this as well. So on the Pydantic documentation page for AGUI, so I'm going to copy this to add AGUI. I'm just going to add this here. So let's set up the backend project. So I'm going to go to main.py and remove everything here. And then on the Pydantic AI documentation page for AGUI, there's a piece of code there that I'm going to copy. So you have this piece of code here for FastAPI. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it in here and comment this out. I'm not going to be using this agent. So I'm going to have to create my own agent. So I'll create a folder in here, call it agent. And I'll create init.py to make it into a package. And then I'll create setup.py. I'm going to paste our usual setup. And I'll create an environment variable file.env file. So I'll create that at the root. Then I'm just going to paste this. So I'll paste my API key for OpenRouter here. All right, so we have setup. So let's create our first agent. Let's call it Orchestrator. So our usual agent. So we're just going to go. So let's have this for now. So we'll go to our main.py and import Orchestrator agent here. So from agent dot Orchestrator import Orchestrator agent. So I'm just going to take Orchestrator agent and pass it in here. All right, so great. So that will be our placeholder for now. And so I'm going to start the backend. So the backend, I'll use uvcon main app -- reload. All right, so let's go set up the front end. So I'm going to go into the front end project. Inside component, I'll create a new folder called main. And inside main, I'm going to create index.tss file. Here in our main index.tss file, I'm going to create a main component, and I'm going to use the component to set up CopilotKit. To set up CopilotKit, you need the provider. And so I'm just going to add it in here, export const main component. Return. So in here, I'm going to add CopilotKit. I'm just going to div for now. Come back to this. So let's try to import Copilot. Okay, my IntelliSense isn't picking it. So let's see. Let's add a directive first. Use client. It's going to be a client component. So import from CopilotKit call. So I'm just going to call CopilotKit in here. Great. So, and in here, Copilot needs the runtime. You need to pass in the runtime URL. So I'm going to create an API route for CopilotKit. Let's call it CopilotKit. All right, great. So let's create this route. Let's create the CopilotKit route. So in here, I'm going to create API route, and I'm going to call this CopilotKit. And then inside CopilotKit, I'm going to create our route.ts file. So inside this route.ts file, I'll copy the CopilotKit setup into the file. Here in the CopilotKit documentation, you can see API CopilotKit route.ts. So let me just copy this and paste it in here. So there you go. So we have our server running on 8000. So great. We'll just leave everything. Let me just change this to default. All right. So in here, I want to use shadcn resizable component. So let's bring in resizable component. So I'm just going to copy this in here. So I'm just going to run this. So we have resizable installed. So next thing, I'll just copy this and paste it in here. Import all missing. Great. So for this, I want to set the default size to be 25%. So this should be where I have my chart component. And then this will be where we'll have the preview component. All right, so let me copy this main component and go to this page in here, the default page, and just remove everything. So let me remove everything and bring in our main component. Remove this. Great. So in here, I'm going to run the front-end application pnpm-dev. Now let's see how it looks on the browser. All right, we have a CopilotKit complained about a module. This tells me CopilotKit uses OpenAI internally, right? So let's just install it. So CopilotKit has access to that module, pnpm add OpenAI. So now we'll run our application again, pnpm-dev. Great. And I want you to notice something. So here, CopilotKit gives us an inspector that we can use to inspect our agents and inspect our AGUI events. All the events as they're coming in from the backend application, you will see them up here. So let's set up the chat component and the preview component next. So inside components, I'm going to add chat. So inside chat, I'm going to create index.css. I'm going to create a component. I'll call it chat component. And I'll import Copilot chat. So Copilot chat is a component that already handles the UI for chatting and basically the implementation for chatting with the AI agent. It already handles it for us. So there are several other components, but I want to use this particular Copilot chat. And so this chat component, I'm then going to pass it into the main component. So we'll replace this. All right, so right now it doesn't look good because we've not imported Copilot CSS. So let's bring that in. So you can see Copilot CSS. Let's import that. So we'll just pull it in here. All right, so this is how it looks currently. Let's do a little CSS styling. So I'm going to come in here inside main component and pass in height as screen. Great. And so you can see I have the chat component on this side and the preview component is on this side. So I don't want it to be at the middle. I want it to be at the bottom. So let me fix that. So I'll go into chat component and welcome screen should be false. Yeah, great. So now it's at the bottom. All right, so let's work on the preview component next. So in here, I'm going to create preview, and inside preview, and there's the TSS. I'm going to create a preview component. And inside preview component, I'm going to set up ReactFlow. So first I need to import ReactFlowProvider. ReactFlowProvider, which is the Xyflow library. Let me just put a div in here. All right, so let's import it. My IntelliSense isn't picking it, so let's import it first. Import from Xyflow React. So I'm just going to paste this in here. Great. So now I'm going to take this preview component and pass it to the main component. All right, so inside this preview folder, I'm going to create another component called canvas. All right, so here in canvas index.tss file, I'm going to paste this piece of code that I have for the canvas. So with this code, I'm able to render each node on the canvas as an iframe. The AI agent generates HTML string and HTML content. I take that HTML content and I render it in a page node on the canvas. So this is how we tell ReactFlow the type of node that is going to be rendered. So you can see I set the type here to page node. So this tells ReactFlow that, hey, you are rendering an HTML page. And so to render the HTML page, I basically have this iframe in here. So I get the HTML content and pass it into the iframe. And so I render the HTML content from the AI agent into an iframe. All right, so I'm going to copy this canvas component and go to the preview component and replace this, the canvas component, and just import from canvas. Now let's see what we've done so far. All right, so here on the browser, you can see we have two placeholder nodes, which are the initial nodes that we have on the canvas component. And so I'm just going to test the agent and just say hi. Let's see what it returns. Great, that's working. So now let's configure shared state. In our front-end project, inside SRC, I'm going to create a folder, models. And inside models, I'm going to create index.ts. And in here, I'll create a type shared state. So shared state is going to have project name, string, and it's going to have confirmed pages, which for now I'll just go put as any array, and it's going to have generated pages. Let's use the case, any array. So let's work on export type confirmed pages. So confirmed pages, we have name, it's going to be a string, and then I also would have description, should be a string. So confirmed pages, I'll replace this with confirmed pages, and then I'll have generated pages. Generated pages will be in here. So generated pages will have HTML. Should be a string. All right, so this is our shared state for the front end. We'll also have to create the same object on the Python backend, but let's leave that for now till we start working on the backend. All right, so the next thing I want to add to the front end project is confirm pages tool. So I want the agent to be able to call the front end tool to start the human in the loop flow. So let's create that tool. So I will go into components and I'll create a folder called tools. And inside this folder, I'll create confirm pages.css. I'm just going to paste this piece of code here so you can see what I have here. So this is a confirm page tool. So this is how you create a human in the loop tool in using CopilotKit. So you can see CopilotKit gives us a hook, use human in the loop. So this hook takes an object. And so the object it takes is the name. So I provide the name of the tool, and then I provide a short description, and then the parameters that this tool will accept. The planner agent is going to generate a list of pages and then call this tool with those pages. So once I receive the list of pages here, I then render a component on the UI for the user to approve or decline. All right, so the next property is this render function here. So you can see once the tool call happens, we call page confirm. So page confirm, it's the component that basically renders the name and the description with the checkbox that you get to select. So this is where I call that I render that component. So you can see it here as what this is doing. So we're passing the project name and passing the page list, the name and the description. And then you can see that is exactly what I'm doing here. Page list and then a map, and then just show the checkbox and all. So you can see the console, and then you can see the confirm button. All right, so here inside handle confirm, so this is where we capture the pages that the user confirmed that he wants to generate. So the pages that the user checked, right? So this is where we'll capture it. I want to add those pages to our state. We created our shared state model, right? So I want to add the confirm pages from here to the shared state. So this is how you do it. So I access the agent. So I call the use agent hook from CopilotKit use agent. And then I call agent. I get agent. And so in here, I'm just going to paste this. So all I'm doing, we already got project name from the argument of this tool call. So because in here, remember in here, project name is what the agent will generate a unique project name for the project. And so we'll capture that project name and then the pages as well, the page list. But here we capture the confirm pages. So we take the project name, confirm pages is coming from what the user selected. So we'll capture the confirm pages, and then generated pages. We'll capture that. So that's what I want to send to the agent on the backend. All right, so we've created our tool. So let's make CopilotKit aware of this tool. All right, to make this tool discoverable to CopilotKit, I'm just going to go to main, and I'm going to just pass it in here, right? I'm just going to pass it in here. Import to confirm. So you have to pass it. So you can pass it maybe pass it into a chat component or pass it into a preview component. It doesn't matter, but it has to be inside of the provider. So wherever you pass it, you can't pass it outside of, you can't go and pass it maybe like somewhere outside of CopilotKit. That won't work. So it has to be within the CopilotKit provider. So I'm just going to put it in here. So now it will be discoverable when CopilotKit runs. It will know that there's a tool called confirm page that we've defined. And so it will just take it and add it to the runtime object that we send to the agent. All right, so the next thing I want to touch on quickly before we go to the backend to work on the agents is on the preview component. I want to be able to access the agent state here inside the preview component so the canvas can have access to the generated pages and render it on the canvas. So let's do that. I'll just go agent, and then I'll use the use agent hook from CopilotKit. So use agent hook, and then I'll call agent. Let's bring in use agent. All right, so we have agent. And so I'm just going to go pages. So I will create the page property on canvas component. And so I'll go agent dot state dot generated pages. Right. So generated pages. All right, so let's go to canvas and create that property. So we'll come here. I'll just go type props pages generated pages. Great. So yeah, it's a list, an array of generated pages. So I'm just going to come in here and paste props and get pages. Great. So in here, we're going to set our use effect to monitor changes to pages. So once we get pages, then we render this component. All right, let me just put this in here. If pages.length, then call handle init. So that's if we have generated pages, then call handle init. So in here, I'm just going to call this, and just say const pages node will be equal to pages dot map. So I think I'll have page here. I'll just have index. Yeah, so in here, I can go and take this. Let me take this and paste it in here. So this is what we're essentially returning. So ID will be index plus 1 because it's 0 based. So type is page node. Then I'm just going to go index plus 1, right? Right, index plus 1. And so here I have page.html. Oh, let me just go page. And so I'll take page and I'll just paste it in there. We no longer need this. So I can essentially remove this now. So we no longer need that. All right, so with this, as we receive pages, as pages are being generated, we capture it and then set it as the node, as the page node, and then it gets rendered. All right, so let's try to clean up preview component quickly. So right now we are just passing generated pages to the canvas component, but let's add a check. So we just added this quick check. So if we have generated pages, then we call canvas component, but if we don't, just render no generated pages yet. All right, let's see how this looks in the browser. Okay, all right. So no generated pages. Great. I think we are done with the front end. So let's go work on the agent backend. All right, so here in our backend project, inside the agent folder, let's go to the orchestrator.py file. So in here, for agent delegation, what we'll be doing is we'll be creating tools. So we'll have a planner tool, and inside the planner tool, we'll have a planner agent. That will be the sub agent that we'll call from within the planner tool. And then we'll have a generator tool. And then within the generator tool, we'll have a generator sub agent that we'll call. So we already have the confirm pages tool coming from the front end. So we're not going to bother about that. So now let's create the planner agent. So I'll just copy this and I'll create a new file in here called planner.py. So in here, I'll paste this and I'll rename this to planner. And here, I'll just name the agent planner. All right, so let's add the output type. So I'll be expecting confirmed page. All right, so let's create confirmed page. So here I'll just create model.py and I'll just paste this. So you can see shared state, project name, confirmed pages, generated pages. So confirmed page is basically a class with name and description. So I'll import that class in here. We don't need all of this. So I'll import that class in the confirmed page. All right, so we're good here. So let's go to Orchestrator. And here we have async, define, planner. So contest, we have run contest. And because we are dealing with AGUI, so we're going to use, first let me add a name for this. Just give it Orchestrator agent. So let's use dependency type, right? So our dependency type, we use state dependencies. So because we are using AGUI, this is how you implement shared state. So I'm going to go from Pydantic AI dot AGUI import state dependency, right? So state dependency, and so I'm going to bring in shared state. So shared state is coming from model. We already have that in there. So we have model. So let's bring in run contest as well. We have state dependency and shared state. So here we can just have dependencies, whatever name you want to call it. We can have contest dot dependencies dot state, and then you can access whatever property you want to access from here. Okay. So in here we'll have result. Result will be equal to await planner agent dot run. So first we need to bring in planner agent. So from planner import planner agent. There you go. So here we'll have our user prompt. And create prompt from here. Prompt. right? Prompt. All right, so here I pass in usage. Usage is contest.usage. So what I'm doing with this is to capture the total token used for the agent run. So with this, when I need to get the usage information, the token information for the orchestrator agent, it's going to be the total used by the orchestrator agent itself, and then the sub agents. So this is how I ensure I get everything together. Let's arrange the prompt. So I'm going to call planner, and then I'm also going to pass in brief. So brief will be a string. So in here, I'm going to say user prompt will be contest.prompt, and I'm just add brief. All right. So prompt is passed in here. Great. All right. So here I'm going to return result.output. So result.output is confirm pages. So it's going to return confirm pages. All right, so we have one. Let's fix the order. And just copy this and paste it in here. So this will be generate. So generate will take in contest. So I just want to pass in page name, a string, and page description, a string. All right, so here, let's set up our generator agent. So first we need to create the generator agent, generator.py. And here, and copy the content of this, paste it in here. So this is generator agent. So, all right, there's something else I want to add here. I want to add a dependency type to this. So for this, I'm going to create a class here. So I'm going to call it generator. So here, I want to pass in the project name. So the reason I want to pass this in is I want the design to have a consistent name, right? So without this, the agent could end up generating pages with different branding name. Like it should be the same project name across all pages, and not one page having a different name and another page having a different name altogether. Let me remove this. So I'm going to say from Pydantic import base model. Great. So generator dependency, I'm just going to paste this here. All right, so output will be generated pages. So we already have this model in here. Let's just remove this part. Generated page, that's what will be the output. All right, so I'm going to move this out of here. Because I want to be able to access the dependency, I'm not going to pass the instruction from here. So I'm going to pass it from here, generator dot instructions. And so here, return this, remove this. Right. So here I can say contest, run contest. So let's bring this in, run contest, and then generator dependency. All right, so in here I can just say dependency is contest dot dependency dot project name. So let me just call it project name. So in here, I can just pass in project name. So here, I can put it as a rule. Always use project name to keep branding consistent. All right, so let's go to Orchestrator and bring in the agent. So from generator, import generator agent. So there you go, we have the generator agent. And so we're going to define our prompts. Yep, so I already have this as prompt. We're passing usage as always. And then we now have to pass in dependency, right? So dependency, let me create dependency here. Dependency, not this. We already have this, so I'll just go generator dependency. So I think where is generated dips, generated dips. So generated dips. So let's bring this in. Port. Right, so project name, it would be dips dot, we have project name. Great, we have project name here. Exactly, we'll get it from the state. So we'll pass that to the agent. Then great. And so now this particular tool will return to return. That's what this one is going to return. I don't want to return HTML as part of the agent response. So I want to return the generated HTML in the state. So I want to use the shared state to return the generated HTML so we can render it on the preview component on the front end. So in here, I'll go to return and then return value. So return value, I can just add this here. Page name. So this is what we'll return to the LLM. Successfully generated. So we'll come in here and say type. So event type dot snapshot, state snapshot, right? And then snapshot would be, so we have dependency dot generated pages dot append. Yeah, so append result dot output. Exactly. So because this is a list, so we just append generated pages to the list. And so here we're just passing dips. So in here we check if not is instance. So if it's not an instance of, if result dot output is not instance of generated page, right? If it's not instance of that, then just return not successfully generated. All right, so that's all, except we also need to, we are not using this, so we can remove that actually. And so in here, we'll have to create orchestrator agent dot instructions. I want to access confirm pages from the state and not from what the front end returns. So on the front end, you remember we save the confirm pages to the state. And so I want to access it from the shared state. So that's what I'll be doing here. So I'm just copy this. Paste it in here. So in here, I can just do return. All right, so this is the workflow, the agent delegation. So let me see what is in main.py. Main.py. Let's remove this. So we have dependency types. So that means we have to pass in dependency types here. So we have to pass in our dependency. All right, so if run state, so you can see what's happening here, right? So we take the object, the request object, and then we build run input, which is what we'll pass to a GUI adapter. So all I'm doing here is just making sure that state is always present and is of type shared state. All right, so here my dependency is going to be of type state depth, state dependencies. So I'm just going to go state depths. Let's bring that in. And then passing state, this property here, pass it in. All right, great. Let's remove unused imports. Everything looks good. Let me bring in Logfire. So Logfire dot configure token is os dot get. There's no OS here, so I have to bring that in. I have to bring in imports OS. So os dot get environment and log fire token, and then logfire dot instrument Pydantic AI. Great. So with this, I'll be able to capture logs of agent activities. All right, so let's run the application. So I'm going to cd into backend and uvcon main app. Great. Run the front-end application. So let's do cd front-end and nvm use 20 pm dev. Great. All right, so let's see the application in the browser. All right, let's see our application in action. So I'm going to paste this, a website for London Metro train tickets. Let's see. So here in the inspector, you can see all the events. Great. So we have this. Close this. I want the home page. I want the routes. I don't want the, let me just generate, let's see these 3 pages. Let's see the event as they're trickling in. So this is one of the benefits of using CopilotKit. So this inspector, shows you all the events as they're coming in. In the previous video, I showed you all these events from the network tab on the browser. But here you have an inspector that you can use to see everything that is happening. Great. All right, first page is ready, second page is ready, third page is ready. All right, so there you go. All right, so that's all for the video. If you found value in it, do like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.